This is the EWN Podcast Network.
Welcome to Prime Spark, the podcast that brings you conversations that inspire, celebrate, and empower women over 55. The second women's revolution is here, and it is time for us to fuel a spark that will ignite your way forward, illuminate your path, and reflect your gifts in the world. Now, here is your host for Prime Spark, Sarah Hart.
Hi, and welcome to Prime Spark. I'm Sarah Hart, and I'm so happy you're here with us. Prime Spark is designed for women over 55 or close to help us all live our happiest, most fulfilling, and productive lives now and in the future. The mission of Prime Spark is to change the way our society sees and treats older women. That's a big mission, which only means we all need to be involved and we need to get going now. And today I have the great pleasure of talking with Diana Dunbar Place, a woman whose work I greatly admire. Diana Dunbar Place, founder and CEO of Third Act Quest, describes herself this way. After years of dancing on the edges of my passions through a roller coaster life and career, it was the coincidence of three lightning strike experiences: a cancer diagnosis, loss of a business venture, an empty nest as I turned 60, that compelled me to dig deep to focus on what I truly wanted to do with my one wild and precious life. Fostering connection, inspiring others, and sharing people's stories have always been a personal passion. I had never put this passion front and center until Third Act Quest was born. Third Act Quest and the new 333 Collective are my way of reframing the perception and experience of aging by inspiring and connecting women as they create their life's most exciting chapter, their third act. My 35-year professional career includes a decade in Boston with a leading international ad agency, 10 years with America Online, AOL, Time Warner, in the exciting early days of the internet that culminated in a role of senior vice president. I also started 3 entrepreneurial ventures. I co-founded a cause marketing firm, Dunbar, Hunter and Associates, bridging corporations and nonprofits around ranges of issues from AIDS to homelessness, domestic violence, and breast cancer. I launched Wonder Blink Photography, a dream I'd had since I was 14, and the Global Design Post, an online platform for designers. Though each of these experiences was fascinating, remarkable, and expanded my life and my mind, it is what happened around my business career, the little breadcrumbs that I followed, that have driven me and were calling me all these years. I am grateful to have connected the dots to live my life in a way that brings me great joy and meaning. My favorite quote is, "Tell me what it is you plan to do with your one wild and precious life," by Mary Oliver. Welcome, Diana. I'm so happy you're here.
Well, Sarah, thank you. I am honored to join you. I am always happy to see you. We've connected in our lives, like many of us, only through Zoom, but we're united in our mission. And I'm just really pleased to be here today.
Thank you. I am so pleased you're here. So in getting started, let me just ask you, do you experience getting older? And if so, what is that experience? And if not, why do you think it is that you don't?
Well, I have to say, I have experienced getting older. And recognizing that, like many of us, we feel young, and we feel like that same child we've always been, with a little bit more wisdom. And it isn't until we glance in the mirror, perhaps, where we go, like, who is that we realize we are getting older. But I want to bring up that there have been a couple of moments that really upset me. But then the good news for me, and I think all of us now, is that now I'm fully in it and loving it. Certainly, don't get me wrong, there are lots of disadvantages to aging, whether it be ageism in the workplace or culture and societal. But for me, the little ahas were, being a mom later in life. I didn't have a child until I was 41. So I was the woman in kindergarten, or who some thought may have been the grandmother, so I first experienced that, like, oh, I'm not like you. I'm not, that was my first recognition of being older. And later on, I think in my 50s, with a lot of us, you tend to feel like you might start to disappear and being disregarded. I used to be able to sit in a boardroom and be heard. And now, I didn't have even the keys or the door to open into the boardroom. So those were sort of pretty daunting feelings. But I have to say, and without being a Pollyanna, I have to say that I choose to embrace the possibility and try my best to just embrace every moment, aging or not. So, long answer to your beautiful question. But
yeah, no, it's a beautiful answer to my question. What occurs to me, Diana, is I'm sure you have experienced this also. When I talk to women across the board, almost, they say, well, yeah, I experience getting older. Like what you said, when I look in the mirror, or when I get out of bed in the morning, I have a few more aches and pains. But other than that, I feel better than I've ever felt. I feel more me. I feel more who I'm meant to be. And that is so prevalent among older women, and that is not recognized in society.
Yeah, I think you're right. I'm so happy to hear that first, but I think the assumption is, oh, I feel so sorry for those, like you said, I feel like any mask I've been wearing, and I wore a few masks in my corporate life, are all gone. I'm me, like it or not. And that is the most freeing feeling, as you say, whether I wake up with a couple aches in my shoulder or not, I really can feel like I can go out in the world and be who I am and not worry anymore.
That is exactly what I hear, and I'm sure you do too. That I don't care so much anymore what people think of me. I mean, I just I spent my life caring about that, and I just don't care so much anymore. So,
well, I also think too, and it's so evident, is that we can, when we recognize that it's our choice. We're the ones that are the drivers on this bus. And we're not necessarily always being treated well in the media or in the workplace or in society, but it's our choice in how we experience all that stuff and choose to just move on, and do what we wish.
I have decided to become a bit of a observer.
Oh,
look at that. It just happened again. Oh, look at that. It just happened again. Because I get angry when there's a really ageist and particularly a gendered ageist comment. But the only person that harms is me.
Absolutely.
And so I'm really trying to, I'm not trying to avoid it and ignore it. I'm trying to observe it and say, oh, look at that.
You're sort of like a reporter as opposed to someone who's angered by it.
Yeah. Or what do you call a person who goes into a different culture and watches behavior?
I think, well, I like to think of it as being like a sociologist, being fascinated by what is the motivation, or in the case of, I think about television shows that, complete, I forgot the name of, there was one that literally there was an older woman who was an employee, and oh my gosh, she did the most bumbling things, the most stupid things, and people made fun of her. And I said, I got angry at first. And then like you, I said, you know what? It's clear that the writing team is younger and that they don't have any positive intergenerational relationships. But if they loved and had a cool relationship with a teacher, a mom or grandmother, they wouldn't do this, but they don't. So it says to me, we need to work harder to, especially intergenerationally, to connect with each other better.
Absolutely.
Well, we're not so nice. We're not so nice to the youngers either.
That's right. No, we're not.
Oh,
I mean, I think the sooner we can stop talking about generational differences, and I'm not saying they're not there, but stop talking about it. Let's look at the similarities and also what the differences, what are the gifts of the differences?
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
So you mentioned how you felt in kindergarten when you were an older mom. Mm-hmm. You, in your introduction, you talk about one of the defining moments for you was your empty nest at 60. Mm-hmm. Talk about that, because that is so real for so many women.
Well, there are two things that there are about 7,000 things I could say, because I define my child, my fabulously wonderful soul of a daughter, as my last and most perfect egg, because like many women, I put off settling down and having children because there's part selfish. I wanted to do all this stuff. I said, all the women before me fought so hard to give me an opportunity in the workplace. And I had a really fun career and a lot of things going on. I kept just kicking the can down the road. So it's part selfish and it was part ignorance. I remember and was talking to someone whose daughter is delaying motherhood. And I said, when I kept delaying it, I was using what was culturally the norm. You heard stories of, oh yeah, you have to start worrying about fertility in your late 30s. The minute I ended up not being able to get pregnant, there was a huge research study that basically was for the first time acknowledging that fertility started to dip at 27. So the reason I mention that is, to me, that was huge. That was a huge thing. And I felt so badly. The reason the research study even happened is that there was a woman doing a study of women who'd broken through the glass ceiling, and she got midway through it. I mean, she was interviewing people like Wendy Wasserstein, Diane Sawyer, all these really, remarkable women at that time. And they each, she said, without skipping a beat, she said basically most of them were childless. And most of them had not planned it that way. And most of them had made decisions that delayed their marriage or their partnership or their attempt to have children. So she shifted her whole research from breaking through the glass ceiling to fertility. And it was the cover of Time magazine, but this was 1999 or so when this came out. I was like, that's a little late to be helping women understand things like that. But anyway, that's off question. But to me, it was remarkable. It was a remarkable thing that I almost missed out on. And a lot of people do miss out on for a variety of reasons. So it's quite meaningful to me in my life's journey. Then the empty nesting, which is the other part of it. Because I was older, I was so ready for her. I mean, and I drank in every moment. I put my work down for a period of time That's when I went away from America Online and became a photographer. I always had to do something, but it was all about her. I put her front and center and said, I'm going to be her mom. So when she left, it was the perfect timing for me to reinvent yet again. But as she left, and she'll never leave, technically. I mean, she's going to be so embedded we're going to be embedded in each other's lives. But to me, it was such a beautiful thing to watch her fly because she was ready. And, ironically, so was I. I wasn't in a heap on the floor like a lot of moms I talked to. I was just so excited for her. So that's a long answer to your question.
No, it's not. So when you talk about the impact in your 60s of being an empty nester, it basically was very positive.
Oh, it was fantastic.
Yeah.
It's like, she's off. She's ready. She loves us. I'm connected with her. She still calls me with advice, questions, but I know that she is on, and this is one of the things back to your intergenerational connection. She's a marine biology undergrad. She's studying right now. She's in a research program studying the effects of microplastics on coral and is all about conservation and all that. So I went to a research symposium that she and about 100 other undergrad students participated in. And I left that saying, I felt like saying, anyone who has fear about our future, whether it be in the medical or environmental things, the fact that these young people are here, I mean, they're remarkable. So I have such great faith in the younger generation. So part of my work with Third Act Quest is definitely the core is to reframe aging, but a real hopefully widening effect is to have younger kids or younger adults even look forward to aging. So I've got to go through all these other different phases of my life, but it's not misery. It's not something to dread. So I hope to have an effect on younger people as well.
I think that's wonderful. One of the things that keeps me from getting really just morose about a lot of the situations that we have right now is the younger generation. And every once in a while, I think, okay, everybody, it's time for us to get out of the way and let them in here to get going, because I really have great faith and hope in them. And I think that the intergenerational, I would like to figure out another word for that, because I really want to stop highlighting the different generations. Yeah. So I don't know what it is, but so Diana, you just mentioned your work with Third Act Quest. What is Third Act Quest and how did that come about?
So the lightning strike moments you mentioned, one of which was becoming an empty nester, came on the tail end of a pretty crazy cancer diagnosis and a little bit of a journey that necessitated that I shut down a business that I'd been, as I said, working on like night and day for 4 years. So at that moment, I was left clear. I was left clear with a clean plate. And I was also left clear with so much gratitude to simply be alive. I also, quite honestly, though I loved the business I was working on, I thought it was fascinating, it wasn't me. So I also felt like I got set free from a path that would not have been right for me. I mean, a lot of the paths in my life they excited me, but they weren't me. So this is a very interesting question, because I sat with great joy and calmness around this crazy time of life and just said, who am I really? What is it that are, like I said, the breadcrumbs? What are the threads? And they really were around a fascination for understanding people's behavior, and mostly about hearing. I have been cultivating a lot of older female friends, and also learning other people's stories, seeing the decisions that could be made to alter your life. I also had done a lot of work on my own, sort of not officially as a coach, but sort of helping gather groups of women. These were things on the side to sort of nurture themselves. So it all sort of came to, it's like, okay, I'm going to tell the stories of third act women that are just living meaningful and hopeful and happy lives. And I looked on and I thought, this is my third act. So I looked on the internet and Googled third act, and this video by Jane Fonda came up. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but she talks about her third act and what a third act is. I'm like, okay, that's the name. And then the next day I started, and I do a number of different things. I have workshops and retreats for women around, I call it living forward. So we basically dig in and figure out and start exploring. I help them start exploring different avenues for their third act. Most of the women I've worked with are in a transition. They're leaving a job, they're leaving a marriage, they're changing their lives, they're, turning it all upside down. So that's one segment. But I also, and this is very exciting, I've done two new things. I have my annual storytelling event. And I think that's when I met you first. You were one of the people that came, and you're actually one of our storytellers this year. It's our third annual. We call it the Third Act Quest Storytelling. So that just brings me alive, because I get to meet people like you. And I think I have now 20 other absolutely inspiring women doing all sorts of different things. And I find the common threads for them are not only that they've just decided to follow their hearts, maybe for the first time, they've discovered the passions that have been there all along, but they're also very purpose-driven, and which is neat, because isn't it cool to get to this point in your life where you can figure out how you can serve and leave the world maybe a better place? So at any rate, so those are the main core things. I also have a community that is a membership organization, so it's a private one called the 333 Collective. I call it in beta. Right now it is, oh my gosh, I'm so excited about it. So I won't go into great detail, but it's basically a place where third act women or women over 50 can come and connect. It's not like another Facebook group. It's totally different. It has a bunch of different groups within a group, let's call it, where women get to raise their hand and say, I have a passion for this. Can I host a group? And I'll say yes. And then as they're developing that, they gather and have events, now mostly online, but we're going to have more and more in-person events. So that sort of all melds into the storytelling event to make for really, I hope, a really connective, something that's really connecting. Deep friendships, potential for collaboration, and also to help each other with each other's businesses, if they have businesses, I'm seeing it starting to bubble up that way. So very excited.
That's so cool. So what is it about story that excites you or gets you? I mean, I love story, and I realized at some point that all I have to hear is somebody say, once upon a time. Yeah. And I'm ready to sit down on the floor with a blanket and a cup of cocoa, and I'll listen to them forever.
Yes.
What is it about that?
Well, and this is, I am not a sociologist nor a psychologist, but I would say at its very basis, it's magic. It is a magical ways that we connect with each other, and we all crave it. So I may look at a male, younger than I am, that's a plumber, and, where do we connect? But when I hear a story from someone, I can connect with them. I also think and this is why I like it particularly for inspiring women at this age, is that I think it's the very beginning for some women of making change. of gathering the courage to let their curiosity take over rather than their fear. If you hear a bunch of stories of people who had horrific, challenging disruptions in their lives, yet now they discovered something new about themselves or about, possibilities. The minute you hear that, it starts to bubble up in your head. So I think it's the connection. And I also think it's just to open up, crack you open in a way to saying that's possible for me too. So.
I think this is true. That if somebody is telling a really heartfelt, to their knowledge, true story about themselves or their life, it's really hard not to like them.
That's true. It's true. They're real.
Yeah. And if somebody really goes to that point with their story, then I suppose there are some people who I wouldn't find likable with the stories they tell, but generally speaking, I think that it makes people likable to one another.
Well, don't you believe also that that's, one of the things I think about a lot is what are the gifts we receive as we age? And, one of them is a lot more clarity about what our values are and how we feel about things. And in coupling with not really needing to prove yourself to yourself or to anybody else, I loved the first time I said to someone, oh, yeah, I started that business, but it was a complete failure. And with a smile on my face, not with oh my God, are they going to judge me and think I'm not really that smart? I don't care. I mean, that is part of the journey, right? So I think that's it too. It's like, if people open up and don't try to impress you, they're just trying to share with you, you can't help but like them,
It's not like a Facebook post.
Oh my Lord. Yeah. Well, isn't it interesting? There's something too that I wanted to bring up that we talked about a little bit before, which is that, women don't necessarily feel as comfortable. Remember, we got the expression when we were young, tooting their own horn.
Right.
So there's a delicate blend between being what we would term as tooting your own horn, or being, bragging, with, telling the truth, So the truth could be, yes, I wrote I didn't, but I wrote a very nationally acclaimed novel. That's a fact. Right. And so that's okay. But at the same time, I can also tell you that I cried for 365 days straight trying to write it. Those kinds of stories. I think Brene Brown did a really good job, though, too, of letting us releasing the ability to be vulnerable is okay. It builds trust and connection, really.
Yes. One of the things when I ask women to say something good about themselves, I will always say that I say this to men and women, but particularly to women. Don't take it away. Say what you did and let it rest. Don't say, oh, that was just luck, or I couldn't have done it if Susie hadn't been there, or that's just, that's just say it and let it rest.
Yeah, it's a fact.
You can watch women just really uncomfortable with that initially, because we all learned not to toot our own horn, even with stuff that's factual.
I know. Well, how many times have you been in a conversation where somebody is remarking about an accomplishment and you don't want to bring it up because you don't want to feel like you're competing with them? Sometimes it's appropriate to hold back, but I love what you said. Just say it, but don't add the additional that wipes it off,
Right.
Wipes it away.
Right.
I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's important, right?
It is important because if you listen to women talk about themselves, that is a very strong habit we have that we've learned, that you say something really positive, but then but
Well, that's where ageism, I think, is really contributing to a shrinking, a feeling for a lot of women I've worked with in the past. I get a sense of them shrinking. Their confidence has shriveled dramatically. They know who they are inside, and then they encounter enough ageism from outside, and it just pushes it further and further till they start believing it.
Right.
And that's talk about anger producing. That's really sad. It's a
Really sad.
bad way. But I think because of people like you and your podcast and so many other people, thank God, are actively, there are some people who are activists. There are some people who are encouragers. My method is storytelling and connection and community. I think there are so many of it at us coming from a number of different angles and try to change the way it feels to be old.
Right.
We're alive, okay?
We're alive. It's a gift. There's so many women in the world who don't have the opportunity to get old. So, So Diana, from your bio and from everything I know, you have done so many things. Don't laugh.
Well, I laugh because I have like the wildest portfolio of things.
Yeah, it's a wonderful portfolio. But what's next? What's next?
Oh,
what are your dreams? What's coming?
Okay. Thank you for asking. So, I'm doing a lot of my what's next from last year already, which is to launch the 333 Collective. We already have in the mid-50s in terms of numbers of women. My what's next with that, it's going to be global. It's never going to be immensely huge because I want it to stay intimate and, people that are like-minded about this stage of life. So that's singing, and that's just making me happy. The storytelling event is happening again. The what's next on that is 2023. I want to be in person with stories and experiences, and I'm hoping you'll be there.
And lots of hot chocolate.
Oh my gosh, lots of everything. I think it's going to be so much fun. But for me, I can see us all sitting on pillows listening to each other. But my real dream is one that's been in me since I think I was like 17. So I've always been a photographer. I've always been the person in my family and my friend group who's chronicled everything. And I was a professional photographer for 4 years, and I ended up not wanting that to be my business. But it's still very much a part of my life. But what's really been a part of me since I was 17, this is very bizarre, but I've had the opening, probably 2 minutes of a film that I want to create in my head since I was young. And I'll tell you what it is. I'm going down under through a beautiful alley of trees, looking up to the sky. And you've seen that through the sunroof of your car. So I'm not sure how it all fits in. I'm starting to put the pieces together around a concept, as I mentioned before, the gifts of your third act. I have an idea. I don't know whether it's a documentary, whether it's a film, and maybe it's fictional. I have no idea at this point, but that's my dream. And so I keep nurturing it by the amazing connections I've been making recently with a number of amazing women filmmakers. Melissa Davey, who I'm betting who started doing her films at 65, Sky Bergman, Xu Shen, a number of women I'm meeting who are going to film as a way to express themselves and share with the world. So that's my dream.
That's wonderful. Well, I will at some point when we're together, so I'm going to tell you about my dream for a film that I've had for years and years and years, but I'm not a photographer. So I've never figured out how to get it done. So we'll have to talk about this.
Well, and we should, because the other day I was on the phone with somebody who said, I want to make a film. And I'm saying, I think maybe what I'm forming is a team of connections of people that want to play a part in co-creating a film. Who knows?
Who knows? Love it.
Who knows?
So Diana, if somebody wanted to get in touch with you to find out more about any of these things you've talked about, what is the best way for them to contact you?
Well, I'll share my email. It's diana@thirdactquest.com. And my website is just simply thirdactquest.com. And there's a contact there if in case you forget the email. But yeah, I love to hear from people. I'm also on LinkedIn as Diana Place. And I meet a lot of people there. And I love how we've really used that as a great place for sharing ideas and meeting people. So that would be wonderful.
Great.
I'd love to hear from anyone.
So that's our time. Please join us again. You can find our Prime Spark podcast on every popular outlet. Find out more about Prime Spark at www.primesparkwomen.com. Thank you so much to my guest, Diana Dunbar Place. And don't forget, you can find her at Third Act Quest, ThirdActQuest.com with a contact. She's also.
Can I say one more thing before I leave?
Absolutely.
Okay. So you mentioned my favorite quote, and it's a question that I love for everyone to contemplate. It's the end of Mary Oliver's poem called A Summer Day. And it is, tell me, what is it that you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? Now, if that doesn't give you goosebumps, it does for me.
It does me. I've read it and heard it many times, and I still get goosebumps. So
I'd love.
Thank you, everybody, for being with us. Take care, spread tolerance and love. Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining us on Prime Spark. With each episode, Sarah Hart brings you conversations that inspire, celebrate, and empower women over 55. If you would like to listen to or download other episodes about remarkable, experienced women, go to ewnpodcastnetwork.com. This podcast is also available at Spotify, Apple Podcast, and most other major podcast sites. The second women's revolution is here, and we hope that you use the insights you've gained here to fuel the spark that will ignite your way forward, illuminate your path, and reflect your gifts in the world.
Have you ever asked yourself this question? Why is it so hard to make a buck? I know I have. Hi, I'm Sandra Yancey, founder and CEO of eWomen Network. What I have discovered after going from the brink of bankruptcy to running a multi-million-dollar award-winning business is this. You can't build $1 million dream hanging around minimum wage mindsets. My mission is 1 million women entrepreneurs generating $1 million in annual revenue. So here's what I've done. I've created the mother of all entrepreneur success programs that you can access online on your time. It's called Monetize Me Now. It's a 7-module online course that is 100% my success formula, covering mindset, mission, management, motivation, marketing, and measure. Come on, take my hand and I'll show you the way to learn to earn flowing revenue for your business. Visit monetizemenow.com for details. Calling all speakers, eWomen Network has speaking engagements all over North America that must be filled. Are you a gifted messenger, author, expert, or successful entrepreneur that can help women entrepreneurs grow their businesses? Our mission is to help 1 million fulfilled women each achieve $1 million in annual revenue. If you're a speaker that can help women prosper, go to eWomenNetwork.com and sign up as a pro member of our Speakers Network. That's eWomenNetwork.com. Thanks for listening. This is the EWN Podcast Network.